the trees, the branches, the bushes, the fences, it was just this white blanket of snow, which was absolutely beautiful. And they talk about, when they start talking about things as the glass half full or the glass half empty, what we can do in the sense of looking at winter is, what is it about winter that is positive? One of the things that I noticed a number of years ago is when you have this blanket of white snow on the ground, it actually brightens up the night. So here in Canada, in the northern hemisphere, you lose your hours of daylight, and with all the snow on the ground, it actually just brightens up everything. And unless you actually live in a place where there's a lot of snow, you may not actually get to see that. But it was, I remember, walking home, different hours of the evening, because it gets dark here 4:35, although it's starting to get brighter. But it's so much you can see. You can see everywhere and anywhere, and under bushes and around corners and stuff. It's just almost like this natural night light. So this is great. I don't know who we have on board here because it's not showing me. One of those lovely things about Facebook that you're not quite sure if at times it's working or if it's not working. So it's showing me that it's working, but there's that. So there's a couple of memes that I did. I think they call them memes, but it's words on a picture. So they can't really track it. But the idea is, I'm just getting back into doing some blog writing. One of the memes is, and you'll see it, I'll post it up recently, is about, do you have low energy? And the comment underneath is, you are not caffeine deficient. If you have low energy, you're not caffeine deficient. So this is, now that's good to understand. The other one, and there could be basically dozens and dozens of these for all the ways that we kind of treat conditions, diseases, illnesses. This is very important. So this is cancer on one of these pictures, a meme, I guess. Maybe I'm saying it incorrectly. If I am, you can let me know. But cancer, you are not chemotherapy deficient. And the idea with that is chemotherapy is a poison, and it's there to try to kill all the cells. But I believe personally that we are misunderstanding what's going on, be it what our body is showing, the symptoms, versus what's actually the root cause. And cancer is just a symptom, but it's an obvious symptom. It's something that is interfering with our natural health, but so is low energy. Low energy would absolutely be, how can I say it? Low energy would be interfering with our health in many ways. Healing, digesting properly. Remember, if everything is really using energy, if we're all energy, then it would be important to have the right amount of energy, or natural energy. Now, some might be more energetic. According to Ayurvedic, some of us may be naturally more full of energy, and there's nothing we can do about that. So we have to create as much natural energy as possible. So the idea here that I was going to talk about is actually, I'm actually going to do probably a separate video on this, where I'm just going to read something out. So if it's of interest, coronavirus is of interest to people here, right after this I'm going to do another one. So I'm hoping to keep this video at about 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm going to start a new one. So the couple things that I wanted to talk about today, yes, we're going to do the herb of the week. And the herb of the week this week is actually cinnamon. How can we not do cinnamon? Here we use cinnamon quite often. We use cinnamon in a lot of baking goods, but cinnamon is also medicinal. And I'm going to give you this drink that you can have if you're feeling under the table, so to speak, and a cold. So let me just get these opened up here and read it. So the light is a little bit different because if I turn on the upper lights, then I end up getting a lot of brightness top of my head, which is not what I want to do. So I'm going to try to flash this onto the screen here so I can see it properly. Let's go a little bit to well, what I read most all about the cinnamon is from Sri Lanka, but I do have to interject here that apparently not all cinnamon is created equal. And the cinnamon is cassis and then Ceylon, and there's probably others as well. And I don't want to call one false cinnamon. It may very well be just a different, just fall into kind of a different category. And but the Ceylon cinnamon seems more peppery. It seems lighter. The bark is softer, and that seems to be the one that people are using more and more. So you'll see, if you go into a health food store, you'll actually see possibly in different brands where they'll have two different kinds and using the name Ceylon and cassis in there as well. So let me just name off some of the things that cinnamon is good for, or medicinal for, using carminative, astringent. Now some of this you may not might understand, but this one you'll understand. Stimulant. So it's actually a stimulant. It's you consume cinnamon on its own if you just put it a little bit on the end of your finger and kind of put it in. It's very powdery, so you don't want to choke, but there's like a peppery. And when we think of peppery, we can think of chili powder, we can think of those hot spices, and they can be stimulating. Stimulating, as cayenne pepper has been used in different healing drinks as well. So stimulating be one that you would understand. Yes, it's absolutely aromatic, which it can be lovely, and when you smell all the different aromas, it can actually help with health. So I won't go too much into that, but it says here cinnamon stops vomiting and nausea, and there's a few other things there, but I think being a stimulant, as I said, just fire up that, really gets into is your system is let's say cold, or it is cool, things like that. Things like the cayenne pepper, things like the cinnamon actually is very good. Now cinnamon, when I in writing my book, I did a piece on antioxidants. Cinnamon is very, very high, and in other herbs as well, very, very high in antioxidants. So here you go. You have permission to use cinnamon not just in your baked goods, but also with other how can I say, savory herbs. Savory herbs. I actually use cinnamon now in my coleslaw. I have been using cinnamon in my morning drink at times. You can add it to smoothies. Very, very good. So get yourself some cinnamon. This is the herb of the week. So culinary is something that we're really used to, but again, typically we think about it as in baked goods. Listen, if you're making your own homemade chocolates, throw in some cinnamon. But so besides the culinary, there can actually be used culinary with some savory things. Again, with I usually do my coleslaw with oregano, and I also will do it with cinnamon as well. Put cinnamon in there, maybe like a pinch of clove. Clove, cinnamon can be used when you're doing beets. So if you're cooking up beets, or doing it like I do, which is just raw beets, and it's like almost like a slaw again, I'll put it in with there. So you can try that. But here's a favorite cold remedy, and that is a drink of lemon juice, cinnamon, and honey in warm water. Again, we don't want to drink hot liquids. That was another meme I did. Hot liquids, anything hot, will damage the skin, and especially with the fine mucous membranes in the tongue, mouth, throat, having hot coffee or hot liquids going down there, not a good thing. Can be creating and be stressful, and I don't want to say it causes cancer, but definitely when we have something continuously interfering with cell growth or membrane health, there you go. So that's the culinary. And that's the cold remedy that it has in this book. It's the Herb Handbook with Sue Bristow. So I'll just try and see if I can do a picture here. So herb book. I mean, there's a lot of herb books out there. You may have a couple in your cupboard. Get them out. I mean, the idea of talking about herbs once a week here is to understand that their properties are very high in antioxidants. They're culinary. I'm going to focus on the culinary ones first. And these culinary ones are also medicinal, and there's many ways to use them, probably beyond what we've been using them for. So it's just about getting to use them and use them more often in our food prep. And listen, if you buy something that's already made, you can still sprinkle a little bit on, no different than salt and pepper, you know. So now you have some herb there. I may have talked about this already. When you buy your celery, those lovely green leaves, especially if you're at the market, these celery leaves that we tend to throw out, or some of us will keep them in for soups and stews. But those celery leaves, if you get a lot, especially with the celery at the market, you can dry them easily and quickly, and that has been the best herb that I'll just put alongside salt and pepper on the table. It's very green, surprisingly, obviously in low temperature on there. But hi, Eric. So that's what I wanted to talk about in the herb. And the other part of it is the diagnosis and symptoms and causes and things like that. The idea here is, if you read enough books, you're going to find out that one of the complications, or one of the delays, or one of the things that is, how can I say it, bothersome, or is really this diagnosis. So many people have been to the doctor. Many people have been to the doctor, and they get tests done, and they get tests on what tests? How are they conducted? Are they limited? Yes, absolutely. They don't have a test for everything. So in the days of old, some of the things that were coming back were, there's nothing wrong with you, it's all in your head. And some of the conditions that are doing research on today have come to light. Now, one of them is Candida, where it wasn't too long ago that the doctors would poo-poo it. I mean, as far as probiotics go and anything else, it was not on their radar. And I remember having conversations, I had open conversations with my medical doctor about it, just to explore, because I was in contact at Women's College Hospital with somebody talking about, they think there is something there, and they're doing all this research. But you see, the research, this is what's key here, the research is not filtered down to all the medical doctors in a timely fashion. It may take decades, which is why I'm going to say it's very important to do a little bit of your homework, or to have maybe a holistic practitioner of such that can bring some light to those things that the doctor will say, you have nothing wrong with you, test came back, all good. And meanwhile, you know you're getting pain, you know you're not the same as usual. And this is a big conundrum, because there are things going on and the doctors do believe you, and they're doing one test after the next to come up with nothing. And I get this, we have to understand this, you know, the tests are consuming and it takes time, and they want to rule out some things. So I'm going to give you an example of colitis because I did a thesis on this, and throughout many of the books the problem where it was not only a month to get the diagnosis, but it was 2 years to get a diagnosis. So this whole part that I'm kind of bringing together is twofold. One, you're going to have symptoms, and the symptoms that you have are going to be a variety of symptoms with different root causes. So you could have the same symptom as another person, as 10 other people, and this symptom could have a different root cause. So you can see how much in a dilemma that would put the medical community at, is to try to identify what it is. Now, however, certain symptoms, if grouped together, may lead to a diagnosis. And this diagnosis, though, is limited from the standpoint is quite often they will say you've got inflammation in the blah blah part of the body, or you have cancer in this part of the body. But what you have to understand is the medications that they're giving you are trying to take away the inflammation. They're trying to take away the actual pain, perhaps inflammation, pain, and in some cases interfering with the process that you would feel the pain. So think of it as a dulling of the senses. Simple as that, a dulling of your senses, so you're not feeling the pain. But did they get at the root cause? They didn't get at the root cause, and this is really what I see as the biggest issue here. I mean, my book divulges the root cause of all diseases, but again, everybody's unique. I know that kind of sounds like, okay, if there's a root cause, I can just say what it is. But no, this is the step about it is understanding where are your toxicities, where are your deficiencies, where is your tension and stress coming from. You see, it's going to be different for everyone. The mind is the mind. But this is what I have to kind of get across, is that symptoms don't tell you necessarily what the root cause is. And it hasn't been the focus of medical and medicines and pharmaceutical companies and all of that. The idea is they want to bring the inflammation down. They want to make you feel better, because what else would they do is a little bit different, as in, they can't come up with a protocol for you to get rid of something if it's going to be so varied and vast and different for everybody. They see how that works. They can't, there's going to be things, a short list that you can try to see what happens, but we've got to bring the mind and body together here every time they work. So is it something from the body and interferes with the mind? Is the mind, the body, is it both things kind of coming together? So these symptoms and the root cause is key to understand. And then the second thing is you have this thing called diagnosis. And the diagnosis is it's one of those things where science is limited. They're trying to figure things out. And diagnosis could be a long duration of time as you go from one test to the next. It's just all about the rules in which they have set up in medical. And colitis, as much as it sounds like a big word, colitis, you have colitis. Colitis in the earlier days, as I'm kind of pouring through the old medical books, is actually colon-itis. Itis is inflammation. So anywhere where you see hepatitis, esophagitis, colonitis, colitis, they shortened it, all it means is inflammation in that part of the body. It's as simple as that. Now they've gone on to determine there's inflammation in the brain, in this area, if you have depression. Now there's different depressions, but understand inflammation is something that that we have. And just to let you know, the brain does not have the pain sensors as other parts of the body, and neither does the colon. So you're not feeling the food, coming down your digestive system. You just don't feel that. You don't have those that sense of feeling in that part of the body. And the brain is very much the same, but there is inflammation. And I guess I will say that I just working on 2 presentations, and one of them is all about inflammation. Why inflammation? And to go into it from a standpoint that people would be very comfortable with what it really is, because we're hearing this word more and more, and I do not agree at all that inflammation is the root cause, that we have to manage inflammation. It is not the root cause. It is far from the root cause, and I've given examples of this before. If you have a swollen knee and inflammation is there, and of course you want to bring it down, inflammation wasn't the cause. The fact that you tripped and hit your knee, that was the cause. That's the cause in that simple scenario. And all of the other diseases and conditions that have an inflammatory component will also have a different cause. One of the doctors in one of my researches, I just laughed so much at his way he kind of placed it, because he really thought it was insane that doctors were looking at the symptoms to determine how they were going to help or what was the cause of cancer. And he thought that was completely insane, and he did not hold back in expressing that in writing. It was very funny. In fact, I put a couple of pieces of that in my book as well. So very, very interesting. So that's what I kind of wanted to come on here and talk about today. The herb cinnamon. Look it up for yourself, but make sure you have it in your cupboard. Start to learn to use it with other things than baking, savory, and also actually medicinal. So I actually gave the drink. It's like honey, lemon, cinnamon, and warm water. So there's that drink for colds. We've been used to hearing lemon and honey, but I had never read adding the cinnamon to it. So that's a very simple remedy in one of my old herbal books here. So I wanted to talk about that, but what I wanted to do is going to close it here today. Hello, Dan, and hello, Barb, Howard, Suzanne. Listen, Fred, there's, I don't know if you have any questions on these 2 things, but what I wanted to do is wrap up this video, and I actually want to read something. This is particularly of interest for those people on the coronavirus path. Either way, 1, worried, or 2, a little bit more in the known of what's kind of going on. But what I like about kind of bringing it up in a separate video, I'll just put it there. It'll probably take about 20 minutes, 15 to 20 minutes. I want to read a few things. I want to explain a couple things. And I think this will prepare people for anything that comes about when we're talking about flu, when we're talking about colds, because in my opinion, there's lots of drama that can easily go on, a lot of fear, a lot of worry can easily go on, and some of it is warranted, absolutely. But I want to express a couple of things here in the next video that will be very helpful. So unless there's any questions here, I'm going to end this live video, and I am going to immediately come back on and talk to it for at least 15 minutes, and it'll be done. So if that's okay with everybody, I'm going to wish everybody a healthy week if you're not going to come on to the other video anyway. And just, this is all about education and bringing up good questions and finding out things that you may not, you may not just discover on your own. And that's something I like to do for myself, so why not share it with you? So that's really what Live at 5 and all things healthy is all about. So I'll come back on in a minute. I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks for stepping on board. I'll be back in a minute.